franchise fees are too high. This is the thoughts of literally every candidate I've ever spoken to.
Disagree.
Basically, the franchise fee is just training and access to some operations manuals and marketing collateral, right?
Disagree.
So how is you taking more of my money and going elsewhere and helping other people to start up a benefit? Well, why shouldn't the managed service fees or royalties start from day one?
I've got a question for you. Should franchisors guarantee the initial investment that franchisees make?
Welcome to the Full Disclosure Podcast with me, Ed Purnell, the founder of the franchise, and my co-host,
Me, Jo Middleton, founder of Franchise Business School.
Each episode, one co-host will make and defend a strong statement from around the franchising industry. The other one has to argue the opposite side. This week is my turn, so let's go. Right. What is the topic for this week? I know. So, the topic for this week is franchise fees are too high. Now, full disclosure, this isn't necessarily my thoughts. This is the thoughts of literally every candidate I've ever spoken to.
Every single franchisee.
They all seem to say the franchise fee is really steep. It's quite expensive. And I know that might be a negotiating tactic, but I thought it would be interesting to argue that point between us. So I'm going to pretend like I'm a candidate and tell you why I think it's too high. So I'm going to go in with the one that I heard most of all, and that is basically the franchise fee is just training and access to some operations manuals and marketing collateral, right? So why is it 10,000, for example? That seems quite steep.
Okay, so the franchise fee, we're talking initial franchise fee rather than ongoing franchise fees, yeah?
Yeah, at this point, but I think maybe we could have a look at those as well, the managed service fees or royalties, whatever you want to call them.
Okay, so the initial franchise fee is the lump sum payment that a franchisor or the franchise business receives from the franchisee in order to operate the brand in a certain area. What they're actually doing is buying a business in a box that they're going to be able to build. It is one of those jargons sort of, but that effectively they're buying everything sort of low risk model that's proven and successful, and all the terms that franchisors use to sell the model, and they're buying that to build up as an asset for resale, or that's the way they should be thinking, is that they're paying that lump sum and they will get it back and then some at the end if they follow the model that the franchisors laid out. So why would they not pay that lump sum up front to receive the rights to operate that model, as well as all the onboarding process, the training, the operations manual, the systems, the processes, all the stuff that the franchisors laid out?
Because it increases their risk. That's the way that they'll perceive it. Is it's a risk starting up a business anyway, but paying all that money up front, and you're not guaranteed if you're going to fit into that model that well. If you're kind of guessing that this model that works for a lot of people is going to work for you. So there's no guarantees there. I don't know, there's no guarantees in business, but if you set up on your own, you can stage those payments out, you can stagger them. And so it's not such a big financial risk on that upfront piece, if you see what I mean.
I do see what you mean, but then if, for example, a lot of franchisors will have buddied up with a bank who will have gone through their operations manual, their franchise agreement, their cash flow projections, and offer to put up about 75 to 80% of the initial franchise fee. Yes, it is a loan with interest associated, but the franchisor wouldn't have been able to get the model approved by that bank if the bank didn't feel it was a low risk investment for them to lend that money to a franchisee, subject to the franchisee's personal circumstances. So for a franchisee coming on board, if the money was an issue, then there would be the option to get business finance from somewhere or personal finance. I mean, full disclaimer, not disclosure, I am definitely not a financial advisor by any stretch, and everyone should do their own due diligence and explore all options if that's the route they're going to go. But I feel that the franchisor needs to not only pay out of that lump sum potentially some equipment the training, facilitate all the training side of things, and make sure that the franchisee is set up to run their business, which can take sort of 3 months to make sure they're at that point. But they also need some money to reinvest into the marketing of the next franchise territory that they're going to sell, and recruit more franchisees to grow the brand, to be sure that they can add value to the brand. So when the franchisee does come to sell their territory, it has an increased value because of the work that the franchisor's done.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on the business, I think. So if yeah, okay, you're going to use some of my money to go and build.
I mean, if you're going to give it to me, Ed, I'm quite happy to use it.
But you're going to take my money to build up your brand and increase your managed service fees and to get a fee from the next person.
Yeah.
And you're saying the benefit to me is that the brand is stronger, therefore it helps me. Okay, so if I've got a territory and let's say I'm providing some form of B2B service, how does that really help me? Because I'm going to be doing all the marketing to my territory. I'm going to be engaging with people at networking events. You're not spending money on that. So how is you taking more of my money and going elsewhere and helping other people to start up a benefit?
Well, if we take the classic golden arches of McDonald's, for example, I know that's B2C and you've just given a B2B example, but as
I'll allow it.
why, thank you. But as a brand, it's recognised more so than Bob's Burgers down the road sort of thing. So you are more likely to pay a premium rate because McDonald's, you're joining a McDonald's, if you're buying a resale, you're more likely to pay a premium rate for a McDonald's franchise than you are for Bob's Burgers, because you know that that brand's got everything ironed out. You're joining a collective network of pooled resources and shared best practice to set you up for future success with the business that you're buying, and lower the risk and future-proof as much as possible. So the more the brand grows, the more head office staff are needed, and those initial franchise fees need to contribute to the structure that then further supports the franchisees coming on board, initially nationally and then globally potentially. So the brand can't grow without those initial fees, and particularly at the beginning, the franchise fees, the ongoing franchise fees rather than the initial payment, need to be subsidised, because they're not enough on their own to be able to cover the head office costs. And so to be able to inject some cash into the head office business to cover their overheads is crucial during the first few years of a franchise brand.
So you're slightly convincing me, but franchisor, who potential franchisee, who's got to hand over their money, I'm still maybe not. Like, okay, I see where you're sort of coming from, but there's some hard costs up front, and later on, maybe we could split the fee, is what I'm trying to say. So I could pay the amount where there's hard costs up front, and 6 months down the line, when I'm actually making money, I can then agree to pay X, the other half, the other 50%, 40%, 30%, whatever it is, that is left over, to then help you with the brand building side of things. So why can't we do that?
Because you're effectively asking the franchisor to provide you with an interest-free loan.
What's wrong with that?
Because what happens if, for example, you come on board, start the brand operating in your area, decide 4 months down the line you don't want to pay the rest of that franchise fee, and you're going to have to get the franchisor to take you to court, or whatever sort of dramatic process needs to happen to extract the remaining monies that are due. Not only is that a whole can of worms for the franchisor, and the franchisor then has to spend more money on legals and getting down that road to get the money that they're owed, but also the brand's been started in that area and then dropped. So there are customers that either the franchisor's then going to have to service and get a manager in place potentially to manage the territory that the franchisee has started and then decided they don't want to carry on, or they're going to have to leave those customers up the creek without a paddle and drop them, so it reflects badly on the brand. So I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for a decent lump sum up front to show the commitment, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's just kind of not my problem, is it? This me as the
as the franchisee.
Yeah, again, full disclosure, I probably agree with you on what you're saying. A franchisor should set it up like that. It makes total sense. But when you look at it from the other side, you do kind of think, yeah, it's a big lump sum. It's increasing my risk and decreasing your risk. So it's weighted towards you rather than me, especially because you want me then to go out there and build your brand for you by doing all the sales and marketing, right? I know you support me a little bit, but I'm giving a lot here. So then maybe the point that people then go on to negotiate is, well, why should the managed service fees or royalties start from day one? Like,
a lot of brands, they don't.
Can't you hold them back until I actually start making some money?
So a lot of brands, they don't. A lot of brands will wait until the onboarding process has happened and the franchisee is actually earning some money before they start the royalty fees. So with Dog First Aid, I always used to wait until month 4 because the 3-month process of getting the franchise to launch. But I completely get where you're coming from as well, because as well as having franchised my own business and been a franchisor for years, I'm also a franchisee for a brand and own 4 territories. And I can definitely appreciate from a franchisee's perspective where you're coming from. So it's a really tricky one to say who's right or wrong, because I can completely see both sides of the argument as well.
Yeah, there are brands out there I know that charge minimums from day one.
Oh yeah, there are
300, 400, 500, and I think then what that in my head when I'm looking at the franchise fee, let's say it's 20,000 plus 200 a month. So for 6 months, let's say I'm not going to make any money. That puts it up to almost it's 22,000, whatever it is.
My maths isn't that good, so
22,500, I think, roughly. So that's additional, risk up front. So
21,200.
Get the calculator out.
Yeah. Don't tell anyone.
Awful, isn't it? I'm blaming the pressure of the studio.
Yeah, it's the lights. Melting.
But I think I like the idea of franchisors who don't necessarily do it for the minimums for the first few months. Just to give a little something back. And maybe that then becomes a negotiating token that franchisors can use. When someone says your fees are too high, it's too big a risk, okay, well, look, we can give you a little bit of a discount on the managed service fees the first 3-6 months, whatever makes sense, depending on the model and the kind of earning potential in those early days, I guess. So
I think you need to set your franchisees up for success, but also build good foundations for a long-term relationship with them. So it makes sense to actually sort of get that trust built from day one and say, well, it says in the agreement maybe that we should start from day one, but we're going to waive that and do that from month 3 or 4 or however long it takes for them to be in a position where they can actually open their doors and trade and bring money in.
Cool. One more question that I had around that was, what do you think of franchise brands that state a price and then say, for a limited time, we can offer it for 5,000 less?
Oh, that is a tricky one. So I always think that there is no harm in having a bronze, silver, gold package or silver, gold, platinum, or however you want to kind of word it, so that franchisees have got a choice of what level they want to come in to. So it could be something like the silver package is literally just the essentials to run their business. And then, for example, I buddied up with a local business coach that I knew was absolutely on fire. And so for the first 6 months, if they went for the next package up, it would include business coaching with this business coach to make sure that they had as much support as possible to run their business, as well as all the head office support, but dedicated just for them around the social media marketing and that sort of third party oomph, if you like, which helped me as a franchisor because it meant that there was an extra dimension to the head office team. But it also meant that the franchisee had an option of whether they wanted to opt for that or they wanted to just
additional extras, I guess.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
and adding value. So, and then the third package would include social media done for you. So all their social media marketing was outsourced as well for an inflated initial franchise fee.
That's cool. But what about the discount?
What discount?
So, like, yeah, I've seen it before where, come in, have, we'd start talking and say, well, is there anything you could do with the price? And then the franchisor goes, well, actually, for a limited time, we are putting it down to, 5,000 less, let's say. And they do that because they want to keep the candidate moving through the process as quickly as possible. But here's the end date is in 2 weeks' time, so you've got to make a decision before that period of time. So
it's a classic sales tactic, basically. And franchisors, same as every business owners, they are their sales team. So they want to get people on board, but it has to be the right fit for the brand. And I like when franchisees negotiate a little bit, because I feel that they're going to be good at selling in their own businesses then, or they've got a sort of inkling of actually maybe we could negotiate a bit and get people through the door and on board. Whether I think it's ethical or not in a franchise industry, I'm not 100% sure. What do you think?
I think every franchise brand has to have a negotiating toolkit, because and what I mean by that is a series of points that you're willing to negotiate on and nothing else outside of that. Because it's a business deal at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you're right. I think if I had somebody come in and trying to negotiate with me, I would actually be quite impressed and feel like actually they've got some business sense about them. And when it comes to dealing with customers or clients, it means that they're going to be a strong negotiator and it's going to work well for our brand. That's different if you've got like a food-based franchise, I guess. You're not going to negotiate with customers on price, but maybe if they've had a bad experience, that negotiation side can come in and say, well, look, actually, what I can give you is this to
a bit of customer service there.
Yeah, but there's similar kind of skill sets, I think, and that's what, so I'd like to see that. But the franchise fee, I think if you start to knock that down, it starts to devalue what you're actually offering in the first place.
And I'd question whether they are the ideal franchisee for the brand if they're trying to negotiate down and can't see the value in the offering. I know you might not agree with that.
Yeah, I just think it's on little points within the contract, maybe. So actually, can my minimum start 3 months later? Maybe that's something you could say, okay, yes, but this is what we want you to do in the meantime. We want you to produce a business plan that's even more detailed than you'd normally ask, or something like this, right? To prove that you're getting the right person for that territory. Do you see what I mean? There's got to be a bit of give and take from both sides.
I agree. I don't see the point in saying to a franchisee, you need to get the franchise agreement reviewed by a franchise-specific solicitor if you're not then going to listen to the feedback that franchise-specific solicitor has given that franchisee. If they've gone to Joe Bloggs down the high street, who they've used for divorces and goodness knows what else along the years, and they're not familiar, that solicitor isn't familiar with seeing a franchise agreement, they'll pick up on so much in the franchise agreement because it is weighted to the franchisor to protect the brand. But if they've gone to a franchise-specific solicitor and they spent money getting the franchise agreement reviewed like you've told them to, and then the franchise solicitor has come back with things exactly like that just to protect the franchisee, and then the franchisor says, no, sorry, there's no flexibility, it is what it is. Well, what was the point in referring them to whichever solicitors or telling them they needed to get it reviewed? So yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I think you can always build them into the contract, and I think some people do, don't they? So that they can give something to them. It's when the inevitable question of can I get a reduction on the upfront fee comes into play. You can then go, no, I can't, but what I can do instead is 3 months.
I've got a question for you. Should franchisors guarantee the initial investment that franchisees make?
What do you mean by guarantee it?
So should they have, if you don't make the initial feedback within the first 12 months, say, and you followed the model to a T, then I'll refund you your initial investment and we'll part ways.
My question is, are they worth the paper they're written on? Because maybe this is just me being a cynic, but the franchisor can probably find something over 12 months where somebody hasn't done exactly what they're supposed to on that day. Maybe they took more days off than they should have done, or because of health reasons or something like this, or they didn't make 10 calls every single day to prospective clients. So I almost think when I'm looking at it as a franchisee, I probably would go,
it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it because they'll just find a way out of it, you know.
Interesting.
From a franchisor perspective, it's a good sales tool.
And it's also a get-out clause if it's not the right fit and they're not operating the model as you'd expect them to.
Yeah, you can go back and say you didn't hit all those KPIs, or you need to evidence how you hit all those KPIs, and so they can get out of it, can't they?
But it could potentially be that the guarantee is set up so the franchisor can't terminate the agreement after a year. It's only the franchisee that can apply to the franchisor, say with a month's notice or 3 months' notice. So the franchisor's got time to get the customers in that area serviced after they part ways. Just an interesting one.
Yeah, I can't say I've thought about it enough. Really, it's not the one that I've seen that often. I know there are brands out there, but yeah, as a franchise candidate, I'll be cynical.
You'd be cynical about it.
Yeah,
interesting.
I am with warranties, like on vehicles
and
really? Things like that. Yeah, unless you're going to read every single detail and know what you're getting yourself into, you kind of think. Are
they worth the paper they're written on?
Yeah, and as an example, my father-in-law had a 7-year warranty on his vehicle, and they brought the top package, but it was only 7 years. I think they got it up to 3 years on lots of various different parts of it, and then it starts to break away. But pitted paint was the only thing that lasted the whole 7 years of the warranty. So, but it's reams and reams of documentation you've got to read through to find that out. And yeah, I would probably read through all of the terms and conditions and go, that's not realistic for me to do that, because I know things happen in life, and so I wouldn't fully trust it. And yeah, speaking to franchisees in that their business, they're going to be ones that are failing, right? They're not all going to be top of the game. So I'm going to say, can I speak to a franchisee that's not successful? What's the franchisor going to do? If they feel like they have to put me through to somebody, I'm probably going to find out the truth that it's not worth the paper it's written on. And that
interesting. So I think that if I used to have that for dog first aid, I used to have a guarantee, and it was set out very clearly, 1 page of A4, very easy to read, and the terms completely laid out. I always think that personal and professional development is really important. So one of the things on the guarantee was to read and review a book off the recommended reading list once a month, send in a self-evaluation or a self-critique from one session that they had run, one training course that they had run. I can't remember what the...
I'd fall down at reading the book.
Well, you could listen to it on Audible, but they were areas that were designed to set the franchisee up and develop them rather than catch them out. It wasn't designed to set them up to fail and not meet the terms of the guarantee, because I wanted franchisees that were going to succeed and develop the brand, rather than franchisees that were going to fall at the first hurdle and not read the book.
So I think there maybe there's a time and a place for it, right? And it depends on your motives. If you're using it just as a sales tool, it's probably not for the right reasons. If you're using it to actually develop your franchisees and make sure they're doing the best they can for themselves, I think that's a pretty good intention to have that. It's put in place with good intentions. Yeah,
and but also a win-win for the franchisor to be able to, if a franchisee got to sort of month 9 of the term and it wasn't for them and they weren't enjoying it and they didn't find that they were meeting the income levels that they had expected when running the model, and they were running the model, then they'd be able to highlight that and they had a get out clause, but also I had a get out clause because they weren't running it how it should be run to meet those turnover levels that generated the franchise fee, the monthly franchise fees that were needed to support the ongoing head office business.
It's a franchisor hat on now. I've lost money because I've had my staff train them. Mm-hmm. So out of that franchise fee, I'm going to lose.
I think it might have said minus costs.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
so that then
might have done. I can't actually remember off the top of my head.
That then makes more sense.
But yeah, I just think that it's an option that maybe a lot of UK franchisors don't
thought about and
do.
could explore. Yeah.
I actually came about it because I was working with Brad Sugars, who started Action Coach.
Yep.
And I spent some time working with him in London, and then one of his action coaches, my local action coach, spent a good 18-24 months working with him. And Action Coach actually provide a guarantee for their franchisees coming on board.
They're the one brand that I know do.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. Well, maybe
well, now you know too. Oh, no. I don't know if Dog First Aid still do, but...
Anyway, should we draw a line under that one?
What, in that I won?
No. You can't. No.
Can't I win them all?
They are too high, but for good reason, I guess.
I don't think that you can generalise them as being too high.
It depends on whose point of view. I think from the franchisee's point of view, they're too high.
Disagree.
They're too high until you've made your money back.
And then I see from the franchisee's perspective, once you've made your money back, like, yeah. Okay, we'll agree to disagree on it.
All right, yeah. Excellent.
I know I'm right on this one. TikTok is pointless for franchisee recruitment.